Hello, my name is Justin Bright. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program, version 1.10.1, in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And here we are with the crew of Apollo 9 at Lunar Station. We are getting ready to do, hopefully, a daring maneuver. Alright, let's take a moment and do some planning. So, from the perspective of Lunar Station, we still have 5 days and 19 hours before we get home. There is a grand total of 2/3 of a tank of 2/3 of one Apollo module's fuel is on board the station right now, like maybe a little bit less. So we'll err on the side of like 50%, which is going to be about 1,500 or so meters per second, 15 to 1,800 meters per second of delta V that we have available to us. Our first step after this is to change our inclination because we are fairly low. And we are also at a better inclination. That was the nice thing, is that this is taking us on our way to the inclination that we're looking for, which is 1995. Doing this a little bit Price is Right here, okay? So that's going to be 232 meters per second, and I'm adding about 50-ish after that to get down to the proper orbital altitude, which is going to be under 150,000 kilometers in both axes, or both apses, I should say, apsides. And then we stay there for a day, okay? 1 day, 16 hours, grand. So if we then say, so we've done this, and that's going to take us about half an hour to get to the descending node, or ascending node, whichever it is, that is going to allow us to change our inclination as cheaply as possible. After we've done this, and after we've spent the time, then we're going to return from a moon with the final perigee of 60 kilometers. We're going to create that node. That is going to cost us 765 meters per second of delta V, so about 1,000. About 1,000 total is what we're looking at, 1,000 to 1,100. So we're going to want to take the majority of the fuel on this thing, and then we're going to have to plan for another resupply on the way, or maybe just bring back the let's see, or bring back the resupply that's already in orbit, or that is nearby. Because I think that has some Aerozine and NTO on it. But I'm not sure if it has any that hasn't been transferred over already. And while we're here, we're at 107% cooling just about. And we are in fact boiling off some of our cryogenic fuels. So if I take a look really quick, I had 2918, and so I've lost about 40 or so already. And how long is this? It's 21 more days, I think. So I think I only put a 30-day timer on this. So what that tells me is that even just inside the orbit of around the orbit of the moon at Earth, we need more cooling than just 2 short little panels are able to provide, because this thing is getting pretty warm. It's also pointed at the sun, which is not great. I just can't point this in any other direction because, you know, these aren't sun tracking. So that is something to think about, to make sure that I don't have to point the thing directly at the sun, because that may also be part of it. Yeah, I've got alarm repeats on here, so that this was every 30 days. So that is where we are with this, which is not super great. But yeah, that means that we don't have any extra fuel coming our way just yet. So we're going to have to think about what we do for fuel for our 2 Apollo missions. All right, so based on my napkin math, about 2,000 units of Aerozine and NTO are what we need to make these follow-on maneuvers. So I think that we are all set. Do we have any extra nitrogen to spare, my friend? I don't actually have time to wait for the pressurization, but I can borrow a little bit at the very least. But anyways, that aside, we can now undock and carry on with our mission. Flip on the RCS and start pushing away. And we have just another minute and a half of nitrogen to hopefully get this thing up to pressure, but we just don't have time to fuss around with it. Okay, so that leaves us with 1,462 meters per second of delta V, which I think should be plenty to do everything we need to do. And that leaves the other vessel with even more fuel than that, so that they have enough to catch their own LEM from the surface and do everything they need to do to finish out their mission. So yeah, I didn't want to completely take all of their fuel. I wanted to take only just enough to make sure that we can accomplish both sets of missions, or at least that is my distinct hope. So now, let's put my money where my mouth is. 1995. Let's move on. All right, so we are burning on down to the new inclination. And man, if this works, this is going to be so neat. A fitting final mission for Johnny Flores, or probably not final mission, but at least one of the last missions of the standard Apollo architecture. Although it occurs to me that I forgot to run a mission using the Apollo rover. Shoot, so I should probably do something with that. Maybe this won't be the last one after all. But yeah, I just couldn't figure out quite how it works. It looks like it just kind of staples onto the side of the LEM, but yeah, I'll have to do a little bit of research so I don't make a complete fool of myself, even though that's my normal method of doing things. Okay, so we just need to get our apolloon below 150 kilometers. Let's just, yeah, 145 at the next paraloon. All right, so with that done, we need to now get our apolloon below 150 kilometers, which means we need to get both of our both sides of our orbit down to that point. So this one I will do manually, and this should not take too much at all, I hope. And we can do this basically wherever, like, because we're in a near circular orbit at the moment. And boop, 133 looks just fine. And then if we just warp around to the other side, there we are. Flip around, and then we will do the same thing over here. And there we go. All right, let's see, do we got it? All right, we've got it. Now we just need to sit here for a day and 16 hours broadcasting back home to Earth. All right, we are coming up on our final orbit around the moon. 50 minutes, and there you have it. Crewed lunar orbit with 3 is on the return home safely step. Just fantastic. By the way, the crew count record is indeed 5, which we did not do. All right, and then crewed targeted moon landing is return home safely as well. So let's get folks home. We have 4 days and 1 hour to do it, which is actually not that bad. Like, really, that's not bad. And it's not constrained by our supplies or anything. Although people are pretty grumpy that they have to be wearing their suits all the time inside the Apollo capsule. Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic stress increase, but it's also just not that big of a deal because stress has not been that big of a deal for me so far anyways. But then again, we haven't been on a very long mission yet. In any case, let's go ahead and get in our return from moon. Boop. Okay, so if you take a look at this, this return from moon gets us home in 5 days and 6 hours, which will not do. But I like using the return from moon maneuver because I find it weirdly hard to figure out exactly the trajectory to get on this path. So at least getting something to get me started is very, very nice. So we need to accelerate. We need to go a lot harder than we are. So something like that. But then let's go ahead and push it out with some normal. And you can see we're down to 4 days and 16 hours, but we need to go faster. All right, 3 days and 21 hours for our return back home is what we are looking for here, and that looks pretty darn good. Get us down to that. Yeah, 3 days, 21 hours, looks great. 922 meters per second of delta V, so we had to put on an extra 200 for our return to make it a bit shorter, but that should be fine. We've got plenty of extra delta V. I calculated that to be pretty darn close. And to get there, I basically just added a whole bunch of prograde and then figured out what I had to do to balance it, which was a bit of normal to keep this from being like a completely polar return, which is a little bit weird. And then I added a bunch of radial to push it out of the surface so that it was directly where it is right now. And I kind of backed off a little bit because I got it down to like 3 days, but I didn't want it to be like so spicy. Like once again, it's a matter of minimizing the how dramatic it is in any particular direction. All right, so we are burning up and away off from the moon to return home. Johnny Flores rides again, and he is bringing home the contract bucks. All right, we are just finishing off this burn, and I am going to then check and make sure that our trajectory is good. Looking pretty good so far. Let's just back this up just a touch. So we have a nice 60-kilometer re-entry, and we are going to be having to be very careful this time about how we pilot this one back in. So yeah, this is not going to be one of those, like, let's skip past it. It's going to be a real easy one like we've always done, or we can just hit the atmosphere like a pancake, just flat on. Like, that's not how this is going to work. This is going to be a little bit spicier, not like so much, but it's going to be a little bit of a faster re-entry that we are going to have to be a little more careful about. And it looks like I'm also hitting the, I'm actually coming retrograde. So that's going to add a couple more. Telenet Relay 2. Really? How long has it been since I used the Telenet Relay? I guess the solar panels are finally failing on these. Time to shut them down. Sorry, in case you didn't see, I got a message saying that the Telenet relay batteries were shutting down, and I just could not possibly care any less about that. We haven't used the Telenet relays for communications in a while, but yeah, it's good to turn stuff off every so often. So this isn't going to actually kill them, like this isn't deleting them or even making them debris, but I don't really care about them anymore, so I can turn off the notifications and so forth. Alright, so we are hurtling down towards Earth at incredible velocity. Oh my god, is that an asteroid going through the system? Holy crap, look at this! Hold on a second. Alright, everyone, I think I have bad news. If I was looking for, like, a cheap excuse to end my series, I think this would be it, because this is a huge-size Class E asteroid that is on a collision course with the Earth. So this is a massive asteroid that is going to be impacting the Earth. Alright, so doing a little bit of research here. I don't know if Realism Overhaul actually scales up asteroids or not. If it does not, then this is a 30-meter asteroid that burns up in orbit and causes a pretty big ripple in the ocean, but nothing devastating. It mostly breaks up and burns up on its way in, but it doesn't actually do any real damage. If, on the other hand, this is a scaled up asteroid because it's the biggest classification it can. If this is something like Apophis, then we dead. We super dead. If this was indeed the size of Apophis, then it would cause a significant amount of localized damage. It would break up in the atmosphere still and rain down debris, but it would not, and would create a pretty big fireball and a decent sized crater and an earthquake and a not a huge tsunami, but it would definitely create a pretty big ripple. But it would not destroy the Earth by any stretch, or at least based on the little Earth impact calculator that I that I found. So yeah, this may not be a planet killer, but there's definitely an asteroid about to smash into Earth. I don't think I've ever seen that, even in regular KSP. So that's a neat little find. That was a little rabbit hole. Sorry about all that. Let's get back to our Apollo return, and hopefully there'll be an Earth left for us to get back to. All right, we're back to it, and we're headed down. But I just want to see what happens to this thing when it boops the Earth. And boop! It just broke up and disappeared. Well. Yeah, so there was all of those things that I mentioned have happened. There was a small tsunami. There was the breakup, the fireball, all of that. Very, very neat. All right, we are just about home. Very close to needing to separate and do all of our stuff there. We are 4 hours ahead of this contract failing on me. We are just getting down to the top of the atmosphere. We are coming in at 10,500 meters per second, which is just a little bit faster than we normally do. So I really don't think that this is going to be a problem, but I am going to have to play this through as a standard lifting re-entry. All right, we are just above the atmosphere, so now it's time. This can all go away. Make sure things like electric charge are all up where it needs to be. Oh, everything's full on power. That's fabulous. And yeah, that's really all we need to worry about. Alright, so now it's time for Johnny Flores, Donna Smith, and Bruce Henderson to decouple from the service module and prepare for their re-entry. So we're just toggling all the toggles, getting everything all ready to roll. Turn off the pitch and the actuation toggles, and prepare for our center of mass shifter to be used. I don't really have any concern about bouncing off the atmosphere. We are dipping low enough that I don't think that's going to be a problem. What's going to be a problem is how hot this re-entry is, and making sure that using descent mode is not going to kill me. So we are just going to be hitting the atmosphere pretty square on for a little while, and then we're going to see kind of where things, how we're doing from there, and what we need to do to reduce the G loads on our astronauts as they descend further into the atmosphere. Because we're coming back at the lunar reentry speed of 11,000 meters per second, upwards of that, and so we're going to want to get down to like more low Earth orbit speeds before we really start moving around and exposing any part of the Apollo craft to the airstream. All right, so we are down and just hitting that plasma. We are at 76 kilometers, and our speed is still very, very high. So our G-forces are starting to load up, and we're going to start seeing this thing really cooking and really slowing down here in a second. We're up to 2 Gs already, and it's just accelerating. All right, yeah, look at that. That heat shield is blazing, and we are coming down. Yeah, because we are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Gs, but we're going so fast that I really don't want to expose this. So we're okay for now, but before this gets too much higher, I think 8 Gs is the number that we're really looking for here. So just a couple more. If I can just knock like another kilometer per second off, hopefully I don't go too high. And then we can slow ourselves down using the lifting re-entry method. We're at 7 Gs, and our scientist and engineer are starting to get pretty unhappy about this whole situation. So I'm going to turn on descent mode. I'm going to slowly push that up. And you can see the Apollo capsule warming up quite a bit there, but our vertical velocity is dropping precipitously, and same thing with our G loads. Because if we can just keep our G loads at about this point, then that is pretty good. That is what we're looking for here. So we're dipping back down to 5 Gs, and there we go. Now our vertical speed is dropping once again. So yeah, that's it. Like, there's a lot more that you could do, but as far as we are concerned, this is all you really need to do to manage the heat loads and the G loads. Really relatively simple and a lot less effort than I had been putting in. Probably because I've just been doing things wrong, but that seems to be fine. So we seem to be mostly good here, so I guess I'll see you when we are parachuting to the surface. Had another little spike in our G load, so I'm just like turning up that lifting re-entry to drop it back down again. And yeah, that just seems to work really well in slowing our descent and keeping us slowing down in a less spicy part of the atmosphere. And there we go. We are under 2,000 meters per second, so I think we are safe to just turn everything off and fire the drogues. All right, we are just about to splash down. We have made it with 4 hours to spare on that contract. Close that up, this up too, and we are okay, and everything seems to be going well. Sploosh, splash down. We've made it home. Donna Smith, Johnny Flores, and Bruce Henderson making it back to Kennedy Space Center. All right, so that got Donna Smith a bunch of years. Johnny Flores, more than 2 years of extra time in the program. He's going to be sticking around until 1984 now. Goodness gracious. And Bruce Henderson, another year and some. So fabulous there. We've recovered everything. Got a little XP for those that hadn't landed on the moon before. And perhaps more importantly for us right now, contracts complete. Crewed targeted moon landing. The congratulations, crew has returned safely from their mission to the moon. And then crewed lunar orbit with 3. Crew is alive and well after the mission. Congratulations. We have earned ourselves upwards of 3 million funds with all of those missions, but we have done it. That was really cool. Really cool to be able to go and borrow some fuel from another mission to make one mission succeed. So that was a bunch of fun. But I think that's all the time that I have. So if you enjoyed this episode, please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.